Hi everybody, my name is Larsen. In this video I want to talk about upper structure triads, and I'm going to focus on having some upper structure triads from the diminished scale on a C7, mostly because I find that these upper structure triads are a great way to get some really interesting sounds, both in terms of chord voicings and also just in terms of getting some interesting sounding licks out of the diminished scale on top of a dominant. And also because it's something that's really useful in general to work with. So in jazz you work a lot with upper structure triads where you're trying to sort of group together a part of extensions and maybe also sometimes a part of the note, some of the notes that are really just part of the base of the chord. And then you see them as a triad, and you can use that in a voicing to make it sound a little bit more stable, or you can use it in a line to have a little bit more sort of a stronger melody coming out. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar, about improvising over chord changes, interesting scales and arpeggios, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to make sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. The examples in this video are all on a C7 chord, so this type of C7. And the diminished scale that I would associate with this C7 chord would be this diminished scale. The diminished scale is symmetrical, so that means that if we can construct any kind of structure in it, then we can actually move it, in this case in minor thirds, and then get the same structure. So if we look at the scale, we can see that I can take C, E, and G out of it. That means that I have a C major triad in there. And if I have a C major triad, well then I have the triad that's a minor third under that, so that's an A major triad. I also have a G flat or F sharp major triad, and then I have an E flat major triad, and then I'm back on my C if I just move down in minor thirds. Since I'm using these triads on a C7, then I'm going to leave out the C triad, because the C major triad doesn't really add any kind of color or anything interesting to a C7 chord. That's just what the chord is, we already know that. So I'm going to focus on the three other triads and just give you some examples of the types of voicing you can get. And that's the sound of that, and also just what a line using that upper structure triad would sound like. The first triad I want to talk about is the A major triad. So for this entire video, the way I've written out the diminished scale is with sort of a relation to the C root, because we're using it on C7. And that means that my A triad is written out as D flat, E, and A. And of course, normally in A major you would think of this as being a C sharp. But against a C7, it makes more sense to think of it as a D flat, because it's a flat 9. So if we look at the A major triad against a C, then we have a flat 9, we have the third, which is the E, and then we have the 13, which is the A. And if I add a B flat and a C, then I have this voicing. And that's a C7 with a flat 9 and a 13. A line using the A major triad could sound like this. So for these examples, diminished sound on a dominant is really something that wants to resolve. So that's why I chose to just resolve them to an F major chord every time, because we have a C7 with some sort of flat 9, flat 5, 13, sharp 9 sound, and then it makes more sense to just resolve that type of sound to really hear how it works and how it's going to be used in the context of a song. And that means just adding an F major really at the end of it. So if we look at this line, I start with the A major triad, and that's just this first inversion, then a small scale one, and then we get this chordal arpeggio, and that's, if you look at, so the chord that we come up with the A major triad is a C7 with a 13 and a flat 9. Now this is really just the upper part of a C7 with a 13 without any 9 in there, so that's why this stagger fourths or chordal arpeggio is included into the diminished scale. And then from there, another first inversion, but now a descending first inversion, A major triad, resolving to the fifth of F major 7, which is a C. The next triad I want to talk about is the G flat or F sharp major triad. I think in terms of relating this to a C7 sound, then it's probably easier to think of this as a G flat major triad. So if we look at it like that, then the notes are D flat, so that's a flat 9, the G flat, which is flat 5, and then the B flat, which is the flat 7. And if we make that into a chord voicing, so we have the B flat already, so we just need a C and an E, and then add the triad. And there are different ways you can sort of do that. One way of doing it would be this one. So here we have just the E and then a first inversion G flat major triad. You can add the root like this. The line that I made using the G flat major triad is sort of combining a G flat major and an A major triad, and then turning that into sort of two groups of 7. So first we get just a G flat major triad in root position, and then a descending first inversion A major triad. So together with these two, so the first pattern is 4 notes, and then the next one is 3. And then I repeat that on the next set, so that's a first inversion G flat major triad, and then a root position A major triad, and then I add 2 notes, which is a B flat and a C, and resolve that to the 5th of F major 7. If we look at an E flat major triad and relate that to a C7, then we have first the B flat, so the flat 7, then the E flat, which is a sharp 9, and then the G, which is the 5th. So the chord we get is like a C7 with a 5th, and also with a sharp 9, like this. A line using the E flat major triad would sound like this. So here I'm starting with what could be almost like a blues phrase. So it is of course contained in the diminished scale, but it does kind of sound like I'm just have a leading note up to the 3rd, so E flat up to E, and then from G up to A. And then from here we get into the different triads. So the first one is a descending E flat major triad, and then a first inversion A major triad, and then we get a first inversion E flat major triad, and then a second inversion A major triad, and then resolving to the 9th on the F major 7, which is a G. That was a few examples of some of the upper structure triads that you have available if you're using the diminished scale over a dominant, and also some ideas on how to use them. I included the chord voicings because I find that it's very useful to, whenever you're trying to learn a specific sound or checking out a certain structure on top of a chord, then really to have the chord voicing that really fits that sound makes it a little bit easier to hear if the line that you're playing actually makes sense. This video is coming out of a question that I got from one of my patrons, and I think if you have a question or an idea for a topic for a video, then leave a comment on this video, because it's always useful to get some input from you guys. And actually, I find that I make a lot of good videos just coming out of what you guys are asking me. So please keep them coming, and then I'll see if I can make some good videos in the future. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar, and this is the first time you see one of my videos, then subscribe to my channel. The videos that I publish here every week are about finding good methods and solid strategies to improve and explore interesting things on jazz guitar. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. I'm very grateful for the support that I'm getting from my patrons, and it's because of that I can keep on making videos every week. So if you join me over on Patreon, I can also give you something in return for your support. That's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.